Hello again, Sandwich. I'm Greg Anderson. You may have heard that there is one more election for many, not all, but for many of you in town. It's the Sandwich Water District, and even if you don't live in the district, this race is an important one to watch. The Sandwich Water District is a quasi-municipal office, but operates independently from the town of Sandwich itself. It maintains over 7,200 connections in town, and last year it pushed 688 million gallons of water through 165 miles of water lines. There are 3 commissioners in total: Chairman Rick Anderson, no relation, Peter Howell, and Peter Thomas. And Mr. Thomas's term expires this month and has a challenger. And if that challenger wins, it would end Mr. Thomas's nearly 30-year tenure as commissioner of the Sandwich Water District. Let's talk a little bit more about it. Hello, my friend, Peter Thomas. Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
All right, so a lot of questions for you. Tell me a little bit. So 27 years, that's a long time. You know everything about it.
No, I was Officer Hank Hawkins used to stop me on the way to the dump on Saturday mornings, and he would throw me in a cruiser and drive me around and show me what the district was doing. Hank was a commissioner at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And they were kind of looking for somebody to take over the reins, younger blood that would, come in and assist the district into the future.
Yeah.
Walter Fagnet retired and moved on to another position in the district. And then there was a race, which there were 10 of us, I think, that ran originally. And I won that election and have been reelected ever since for, 27 years.
A couple questions. What is the role of the commissioner?
Commissioner is like the selectman and the town manager at Sandwich. We have 3 of us are the legal signers, if you will. We sign all the bid documents and the request for proposals and all the stuff. Superintendent Mahoney and Assistant Superintendent Buskirk prepare the day-to-day runnings, but we are in charge of. We sign all the financial documents, all the. It's a CEO, a lot of responsibility.
But this is a side gig for you, and it always has been. What is it that you do? You're in property management.
I've been a carpenter all my life. I started at a very young age, fixing old houses in Sandwich. I went into the survey and engineering world when I was 27, I believe. And I did that up until 2013. I did 29 years as a survey chief working with, which was also another into Sandwich Water, because the 2 or 3 companies that I worked with also worked for Bob Kreckenbaum and later Dan Mahoney, doing the smaller engineering, the pond water surveys, because the towns take care of the graphing, the water ups and downs.
Yeah.
Property line work, small surveys, subdivision work so I actually did that for 10 years prior to being elected.
Yeah. Wow.
So survey and engineering, and then in 2013, kind of made a career change and went to self-employed, if you will.
Not a bad thing.
It's
Not a bad thing. So let me ask you a couple of questions, just from a clarity perspective. I've learned a lot in just doing some research of the water district. According to the annual report, commissioners receive, it's listed as a salary, but is it like a stipend?
It's a stipend.
And that's $4,200 and $4,800 for a chick.
Yep.
Do the commissioners receive benefits, health benefits?
They do have access to them. Yep.
Okay. And paid for by the...
Well, it's like anybody else. You pay a percentage. It's like the town, whatever it is, the town does 75, 25, whatever it is. The district pays some and I pay the rest.
Got it. Okay. Tell me about PFAS, per and polyfluorinated substances. What is it? Now, why should people in Sandwich care?
Well, first of all, don't make me say it.
Okay. All right. PFAS, I'll go with PFAS.
There's PFAS, there's PFOS, there's 3 or 4 different ones. These new forever chemicals are really interesting.
Yeah.
What most people in Sandwich don't realize is that the wells 2, 3, and 9, which are by the Thornton Burgess Museum out in the back.
Mm-hmm.
Well 9 is 750 gallons a minute. Well 2 and well 3 are 450 gallons a minute. So it's almost 2 million gallons a day. When we had a PFAS strike in well 9, which is the furthest uphill, we shut down all 3 of those wells, and no one in town was any the wiser. So this is
Just rerouted.
This is Mr. Kreckenbaum's redundant system. Bob was a master, and he wanted to be able to do something like shut off 2 million gallons a day and no one would know.
Yeah.
Which is kind of neat.
Yeah.
They've been sitting idle for a while. The chemicals themselves, they were in firefighting, fire retardant, waterproofing. They're things that were used all over the country in manufacturing for years.
Yeah.
But come to find out that they show up in trace amounts everywhere.
Wow.
They did a survey in
Just like a normal pollutant.
normal pollutants. So we don't know in those 3 wells whether or not that strike was a temporary and it's going to move through because it was something that somebody did, 30 years ago when they dumped something in a catch basin somewhere uphill, and it's going to move through. And so we're building a small temporary treatment system there. And we're going to pump well 9 for 6 months and continue the testing uphill and downhill and see what it does before we build a full-time multi-million-dollar treatment system.
Right.
We're going to see if we can make it work. But yes, they're in everything. They're everywhere. All the surface waters in Barnstable tested positive, but they're finding trace amounts of these things.
So what is the intersection of the health risk and the water district mitigating that risk? How do those 2 forces come together? Are you taking direction?
This is the Clean Water Act, the EPA, and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. They're the ones that drive the bus on the tolerances.
Okay.
Some of our wells, if you read the report, you'd see that we suspend iron in 2 wells, and we treat for coliform in some of the tanks. But the threshold keeps changing. So as the coliform numbers go down, you'd have to use more and more chlorine.
Yeah.
There was a time I remember as a kid, you never tasted the chlorine in the water.
Yeah.
And now there are places, Forestdale, because of the tank behind the Forestdale School, there are, we're getting some complaints. People are saying, you can take it a little more than you used to.
Yeah. How are rates determined? I'm in the district.
No.
So I'm
You wonder how we can give you $25 or a basic rate twice a year when the MWRA is $400 a month? Is that?
Just tell me how they're set. Yeah.
In 1992 or 96, Bob Kreckenbaum, I forget who the other ones were. It was Eva Strain was a teacher in Sandwich, and she lived with her husband on the corner of Liberty Street. At Summer Street, sorry. And so he metered her and her husband to see how much they'd use. This is how it started.
Yeah. Wow.
And then he did a couple others in town, family of 5, family of 7, family of 6. So he comes up with this. At the time, it was 20,000 gallons twice a year. So a couple with no children, whatever, could 20,000 gallons, and that would be the base tier.
Yeah.
And then the upper tier, I forget where he went to the next change, was might have been 30,000. Anyways, so Bob said, okay, it was going to be $20 twice a year, base rate. And now a high user at the time, whether it was the Daniel Webster or anybody else, their meters are running and they're in the top tier, so they're not paying 20, what was it, per 1,000 gallons. It was billed on per 1,000 gallons used. Yeah, started, but a base of 20,000. You got 20,000 for the base rate, and then per 1,000 over that.
So are they set?
They were set then at $20. We did not change them, believe it or not, until 2015. We went almost 20 some odd years. We went almost 20 years and never changed the rates. And only recently have we done a $5 change. And we are actually contemplating one more to get it to $30 twice a year. For if you have a sprinkler system, if you have a swimming pool, you're going to pay more. And then the the top tier users, the people who just use a lot of water. And then there's commercial businesses. I mean, we do Cape Cod Ice and others that, yeah. So that is, the rates were started with a school teacher on Summer Street.
Interesting. Wild. In a video, Dave Mason, recently retired, a short while ago, he taped a video in here talking about the pollutants in well water and the benefits of town water, just from a health perspective. If the health director is calling for more town water, what does that say to you as a commissioner?
He's not wrong. Our testing is much. Our water testing bill is some $30,000 or $40,000 a year. It's in what we have to test for compared to what the county tests for. When you build a new house and you get a building permit and you put in your well and you test it and the county tests the water, that's it. Most people don't test their wells. What is it?
But is there an expansion plan?
Let me explain how this works. A district is not allowed to expand itself. So we can't become an entity that says, oh, we want to move past the Riverview School and take all of East Sandwich.
Why?
Because it has to be done by petition. People have to petition the district to expand.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So let me tell you a quick story. There was a woman out off of Popple Bottom Road when Frank Penarfi and Bill Deerding and those guys were selectmen. This woman went around, she got all the petitions, she did the thing because you have to get 51% of the acreage landowners in there to say they want to be in the district. This has nothing to do with getting water. They just have to want to be in the district.
Yeah.
Once they get in the district, then they can petition for the betterments to put in the pipes and the services.
Right.
She had it all done from Rolling Ridge all the way to the Mid-Cape to the Golf Mill Road, I think it was a large chunk of Sandwich. And the selectmen at the time thought it was a tax and a burden. And because they were the largest landholder with the maple swamp,
yeah,
when they said no, they tipped the scales at the 51%, and that whole section of the district went away.
So where are those bylaws that it has to be done by a
It's part of the Enabling Act. I don't have a copy of it with me, but the Enabling Act in 1947,
yeah,
the selectmen, let's see, I don't know who they were. I think Carl Heiler may have been the secretary at the time. But they got, when they petitioned the legislature, it was written up that way.
Got it.
So that it couldn't become we couldn't dominate and take away your right to say, I do a total water. It had to come from outside.
Right.
Or from the petitioners.
So the town allocates, I feel like I read somewhere, about $12 million to the water district as part of the wastewater plan. Is any of that allocated to any type of expansion or any resources to go towards expansion?
I'm not familiar with that one. The
Okay.
town actually gives the district?
That was my...
Oh, you mean the money that they got from the for the wastewater
Yes.
planning? Oh,
Yes.
okay. I sat on that board with Dave Mason I was the district representative on that. No, none of that money actually comes to the district.
Okay.
That's your question.
It doesn't. That was my question.
Okay.
So does it go towards anything within the district? But you're saying it doesn't come to...
No, that has to do with wastewater planning and
Got it.
Wherever the leach fields are going to be and how it's going to. Yeah.
Got it. So when the issue of I'm hooked on this whole how do we expand? Do we need to expand? Because Dave Mason kind of got me thinking. What do you?
We should.
Yeah, we should.
Especially in East Sandwich. Bob Weirdy, Chief Weirdy, came in one time because he had been put as the Carlton Shores is a large development, very nice development. And the Carlton Shores board wanted to know what it would take to get water to them and if they should. And then when Judy Hendy was alive, because all the lots in Sandwich Downs are so small, they're all 50 by 100s or 50 by 50s, and everybody's well is, and Dave Mason will tell you, you've got to have the 100-foot separation.
Right.
So there were lots down there that the wells and the septics made the next lot unbuildable, and neighbors' wells,
Yeah.
So when people went to put on a large house, they're struggling to get their separation from their neighbors because everyone is so close.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are the kind of neighborhoods that would really benefit from town water.
Because their town water is not just bringing a line to your house, it's fire hydrants.
That was I'm convinced that the 1947 group had seen enough small towns in New England burning down that they wanted fire protection downtown. Because this is back when the fire companies, and you had to have the fire company plaque on your house, and if you belonged to the fire company, they'd show up, and if you didn't belong to the fire company, they watched you burn.
Yeah. Well, and I'm thinking, I was talking with somebody who lives in Pinewood Estates, and I guess in that development, there was a requirement that they had to have wood roofs, and so they couldn't have asphalt, which sounds fine. I mean, it's yep, all right, I'll build that.
Which one's Pinewood? I know they did that at Jacobs Farms for years.
And Jacobs Farm. I know that, and that I thought Pinewood as well.
Which one's Pinewood? One right next to it?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
and they were trying to continue on with what Jacob Atwood started with the okay.
But there's no fire hydrant to be found near there. That is almost like a complete, you got to build wood, but you can't have
the fire protection.
So does the water district advocate in any way? Can you advocate? Can you go to the neighborhood and say,
well, the fire department is deeply entrenched, as is the police department with the Sandwich Water District.
Right.
Commissioner Hawkins, who was on with me until he retired, was a lieutenant. Officer Howell, who's on now. Chief Newman, Fire Chief Newman, is our moderator.
Yeah.
So Dennis was always involved because the water district, when they would fight fires, was important. I mean, the night that the Highview Conduit burned down, I think we dumped 120,000 gallons on that. We had people sitting watching the SCADA system, which is the system controls that we have, so that to make sure that we kept them in water while that was going on.
Yeah.
The night the BBC burned down, the kitchen fire.
Yeah.
Somebody couldn't get a hydrant open on 6A, so Timmy McMahon had moved and they'd gone to another hydrant. Well, Stevie Silver ran down there and opened up the one that they needed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the district it's not just potable water at your tap. And fire protection,
right?
Everybody's...
And that's a public safety issue.
Well, and financial. Your insurance goes down.
Yeah.
If you're within 1,000 feet of a hydrant.
Yeah.
And like you say,
right.
Jacob Atwood's development wasn't.
Yeah.
But
yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the campaign. You have a challenger for your term. Is this unusual for you to see a challenger? Do you regularly see a slate of candidates?
No. No, we don't. There have been times. There were two people that had run against. Joanne Buntich was a town planner or a planning board, ran against Rick once. That was an assessor. There were two assessors that ran at once. Walter Schlepchuk ran against Rick. There were a couple attempts, if you will. Not a lot of people vote at the Sandwich Water District when it's unopposed. Mm-hmm. So you have to be careful that somebody doesn't do a write-in campaign, because they tried it on Walter Fagnet once. It was later in the afternoon. No, it was like lunchtime. Everybody from Town Hall came down and voted. And everybody went, that was weird. Yeah, they were all doing a write-in for one of the assessors.
Yeah.
Trying to take the seat under cover of darkness. So, yes, this is a little different.
Was it a surprise?
Yeah. Oh, very much so.
Yeah. What surprises you? Is it who, or is it that it's happening?
Mostly that it's happening. If there was somebody that you would think I'd have seen them before, or they've been in the district or had questions or comments or whatever, I don't really understand it, but
okay,
I'll put up the best fight I can.
There you go. There you go. So the annual report that I had read states that the polls for election open on the 16th from noon to 8.
That is correct.
But at 72 Tupper, and at the which is a beautiful building, by the way.
Now you can thank Chairman Anderson for that, because we're trying to blend into the historic district as best we could. We've done. We like to take care of our equipment, which is not often a municipal.
Doesn't always happen.
Not often a municipal, and the new garage is nothing short of stunning.
Yeah.
But we had a lot of help in the design on that, trying to make it fit and still be big enough that when our guys come back in the middle of winter and they've been up in mud up to their necks,
Yeah.
that they can actually roll some of their gear into the buildings and take care of it, because for years
They could.
outside.
So the voting was one day in the annual report.
But they can do absentee and early up until I think this Friday.
When was that decision made?
We didn't make it. That's just what Taylor told us we could do.
So how does that? So you can do it, but it wasn't in the annual plan. Meaning, was that just a decision to say do you do that all the time? I guess is my question.
I don't know. It's
Okay.
been so long. The last contested race, I think, was the race that Officer Howell won, and that was 24 years ago.
Okay.
So it's been a while since it happened. So once Mr. Sampson decided to run against me, it's basically, Taylor, what do we do?
Okay.
So Taylor tells our clerk, Richie Bagnett, and our office manager, Kristen Lawson, because they're like, what do we do? So this Taylor, as town clerk, we actually pay the town clerk a stipend as well, the clerk and the assessor, because the town does our assessing,
Right.
and the clerk does some of our work. So they also are part of the district as well.
Right.
So everything that came up, all the voting rules and regs, come directly from Taylor.
Do you know where it was posted? Because if you're reading the annual report, you're thinking, okay, I just got this, but I kind of heard about it in this context.
Exactly. This all came up over the last 2 weeks. Yeah, there was no plan.
Yeah. Who makes the decision, do you think?
Taylor. It had to come from Taylor White. He's the town clerk. He's in charge of this.
But the superintendent would probably be the one to say, we don't need it, or let's just stay with what the annual report.
I don't think Dan can.
Okay.
I don't think it would have to be done. If there was a change in the voting, I think it would have to be done by Peter, Rick, and myself.
Okay. Yeah,
Again, this is all new territory, because there was never such a thing as early voting or absentee voting in the water district. It was always the one day. They used to do it from 8 to 8, and Barbara Walling, who was the clerk, Barbara Walling got mad. You guys make me sit here all day for 26 votes. I'm not going to do it. So they changed it to 12 to 8.
Oh my God.
Based on Barbara.
So you just said 26 votes. Is it as low as
35? But yeah, if if it's an uncontested race, very few people vote.
Does the district encourage people to run and promote that?
I would say no.
I mean, my thought,
I wouldn't want anybody. I mean, it's if I didn't love the job, it's not a political job. There's no politics here. This is a utility guy job.
Yeah.
So, do I want somebody to run against me?
Well, I guess I'm looking at it in the context of, we have term limits. We have people that may say, hey, look, new blood can always help. To those people, and maybe your challenger is just that. It's like, hey, there's new blood. Let's put a different perspective on things. I'm wondering how healthy of an election that would make over time to have, just challenges, even if you stay in the job for 30 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The continuity of the Sandwich Water District, because of what it is, the first three commissioners, which were Liberty McQuaid, and I'm going to come up with it.
After you leave, you're going to
Jackie McQuaid, John Liberty, and Phil Granger.
Okay.
Anyways, they were the first three. They all went 25 to 30 years. Hawkins and the couple in the middle, Jimmy Earle was in there, Dennis Earle was in there. Howard Carlson was in there. Howard Carlson used to be in the Alameda and Carlson town, but the water district had no office. The sign was on his building. It said Sandwich Water District because he was the secretary, so they figure anybody looking for him would have to look for him at his office.
Oh, that's funny.
So when we started the tank that we were about to build on the service road, that was in the paper a month and a half ago, I think. We started working on that tank right before I was elected, 1996. We started with the state. We were going to put it on Telegraph Hill next to the fire tower. And then one entity in the state didn't want it. And so we ended up moving it behind the fire tower. And then the state police repeaters, they didn't want to be blocked. So they did the engineering to find out. Yeah. So this went on for almost 30 years. Yeah. So to follow it. Now, in the meantime, we went through Jeff Perry, Randy Hunt, Ruth Provost. They were all helping. Everyone helped for 4 years, and then they helped for 4 years. Then they So the continuity to follow these projects, I think, makes a difference. You wouldn't want a 4-year turnover because then everything that you'd started, the Crackham, Mahoney credits Bob Creckenbaum for his foresight. Bob wanted to stay 20 years ahead on water supply. Yeah. For growth. 20 years ahead of the growth. 20 years ahead, 20 years. And have a system that was incredibly redundant. Could you do that with a turnover every 4 years? I don't know. If it became moving that fast. Yeah. Should you get a bunch of old dinosaurs like us that sit there for 25 years? Probably not. But if it wasn't a job that we loved, it would be hard. It would be much harder to do because.
So among my circle of friends, of course, when this became a contested race, I was like, okay, I got to do a little research because this is the stuff that I do. Right. And so I'm doing my research and I'm looking around and I'm talking to my neighbors. I live in East Sandwich. None of us knew what the district did. We all thought it was just a part of something Bud controlled in the town. But some would say that the water district needs to do a better job of outreach, communicating with the district about what they're doing, how they're spending money, posting your challengers at post minutes on the website, just be a lot more transparent. I heard that from clearly your challenger, but I also heard it just from other people that I know. How do you respond to that?
Well, we always thought we did a pretty good job. I mean, we were in the Enterprise twice in the last 2 months. Once with a water tank, and we came out very clearly. We put out an RFP for the water tank with the engineer's design, and it came back $600,000 over what the engineers told us it was going to cost. So instead of raising and appropriating the $600,000, we put it back out to bid with a couple of slightly different tank designs, and it came in at $3.7 million. So we saved $800,000 in a matter, and that was in the paper. I don't know how else to explain. I'm not sure how else I can sell it other than putting that in the paper.
Do you think your website?
Of course.
Yeah.
But that office staff.
That's a softball question.
Well, no.
You answered it. No, I'm a marketing guy, so I was.
No, we have our office staff that's a busy bunch down there. Yeah. And there's a lot that goes on. And do we have somebody that could take over an IT slot? Maybe. Yeah. And it's been brought up. We're gonna. Yeah. They're going to take a look at it and going to do that stuff. But yeah, they have been accusing the water district of being a little fiefdom, and Creckenbaum used to get a lot of grief.
I have heard that.
Oh yeah,
that's school, old boys club.
Bottom line is, this is a bunch of guys wearing flannel with dirt and issues. They go out and provide a really neat service. Yeah. Are we articulate? Are we politicians? Do we sell ourselves? No. But we try and do the best darn job we can. So, yeah.
So let me bring your attention. There's a Facebook post. Are you on Facebook?
I am, but I don't.
Not to be dangerous.
Look, I'm mostly for dahlias and MG parts. I can't. I've got a 75 MG that I'm trying to figure out how to fix. And so, yeah.
Therefore, you go on.
I will be on Facebook.
So there was an exchange, I believe it was last week. Someone had posted a positive, vote for Dave Sampson, boom, it appears. Then the narrative comes into play, and somebody who is clearly not wanting him to become another commissioner wrote, "What can a rookie member of the 3-member commission do to correct policies that were enacted by 2 incumbents who constitute a majority? Is Mr. Sampson a district customer who has been ill-served? Does Mr. Sampson attend monthly water commission meetings and see deficiencies? Does Mr. Sampson attend annual water district meetings and find fault with the warrant and actions of personnel?" fair enough. Love the questions, love that stuff coming up. But then I read further, and your clerk, Richard Fagnan, had made a comment in there that Mr. Sampson had not attended any of the meetings. Another fact, that's okay. But as I was reading it, I was looking at how he phrased it. He wrote, and he hasn't attended any of the meetings to this date, which to me sounds like, and here's another reason you shouldn't vote for the guy. Do you see that as bias?
Well, Richie is only the clerk, but
But he is the one that's counting the votes.
that is true. Well, he and Taylor's there too.
And Taylor, yeah.
I'm gonna say there's a whole legal
Yeah.
way that they. I mean, he doesn't just get sit in the corner and count 'em like that.
Yeah. Is it fair to have an opinion from the clerk?
Maybe not.
Yeah. Okay. When meeting announcements are advertised along with other town meetings, you definitely post them.
We post it, and if you go in the post office right now, you'll see the entire, both the annual report for this year and the piece you were talking about, the system, the yearly review.
Yes, yeah.
They're all in the post office right now.
Do you feel that there could be a better job of being more transparency, getting the word out? I mean, I absolutely, I think it's wonderful that you're kind of like, hey, we're flannel and dirt in our shoes. I do appreciate that. I also think whether the district wants it or not, it's an election. And now there's a different, it kind of forces a discussion.
It does.
Is that uncomfortable for you?
Only because there's a lot of stress going on in my life right now that it was a different.
Yeah.
But uncomfortable? No, I'll talk about the water district all day long to anybody and everybody. And that's, in some respects, when Sandwich was much smaller. And Mr. Kreckenbaum was running his show, and Mr. Mahoney. There have only been 5 superintendents in 74 years, and one of them was only here for 2 years. So think about this. Yes. So
Isn't that
it was the small town insulated. It was the working folks in town that took care of. And remember, your builders were using water out of hydrants. The landscapers are using the certain hydrants that the landscapers are all used to fill up their stuff. So it's not. They did know what we were doing. Or we weren't. Yes, we weren't probably selling ourselves to a new person who moved here in 1987. So they didn't, like your neighbors, didn't really understand
no clue.
what this was, as long as they turned on the tap and the water was good. And if they read about a fire downtown and the fire department hooked up it worked.
Yeah.
And we tried to stay under the radar because.
Yeah. So I just got the warning sign that I'm going to wrap this up. But very last question. How are you getting the vote out? How are you letting people know you got to vote for Peter May 16th?
I'm not going to give away my secrets.
Not their secrets. But is this a challenge? Is this?
Oh, very much so. I've got a large crew working on this, and we are telephone, internet, you name it. I'm out there. I've got a lot of irons in the fire, but I'm not going to tell you what they are.
I don't. I don't want to know. Peter Thomas, so good to meet you.
Thank you.
Good to meet you.
Thank
Thank
you
you
very
for
much.
coming in. All right, my friends. Now you heard it from Peter Thomas, the incumbent at the Sandwich Water District. I'm Greg Anderson, and I'll see you soon.